Uh, all right.
Hey,
All right.
Kente.
Hey, how you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good, pretty good. So
It's been a long time since we've been in this situation together, huh?
I know. So yeah, it's gonna be good. So go ahead and let's introduce the show.
All right. Well, this is Let's Chat with Kente and Carlette. And, we're real talk with real people and just going to be talking about some of the things that have been going on with both of us and the Black community at large, both in the US and in the UK.
All right, it sounds fun. So I think a little background is I'm from Los Angeles, California. That's where I reside currently, and I'll let you say where you're from and where you reside.
Well, I'm originally from Washington, D.C., and I grew up there. Um, I actually grew up in PG County. We moved from DC when I was about 12, but I grew up in PG County, which is a suburb of DC, and then spent, raised my family in Southern Maryland. I lived there my whole life until I moved over here to England about 5 years ago. And now I live in the West Midlands of the UK.
Okay, and for those who haven't made the trip across the pond, give us an idea of what it's like there. Is it like Downton Abbey?
That's a good question. And the answer is no. Not for us anyway. For some for some folks over here, yeah, but for us, no. So I unfortunately, like most black people in America, I just came over here thinking, that England was gonna be, this great place and racism isn't the same here as it is in the United States. And so I've spent the past 4.5 years disavowing that belief, let me tell you.
Oh wow.
Um, I think that there is a misconnect between Black Americans and our brethren over here in England. And I think that Black British people have a conception of what Black Americans experience. And I think Black Americans have a misconception of what Black British people experience. So I moved over here in June of 2016, but oh, sorry, June of 2017. And I really was looking for a change, a desperate change in my life. And um, when Trump became president, that kind of sealed my fate because I refused to live in a country where Donald Trump was the president. And so we moved over here, and started working on a PhD. And my study was a comparison between the racial experiences of Black American women and Black British women of African descent and of Caribbean descent.
Hmm.
And so I think it's really important for us to have these conversations and perhaps bridge some gaps, which I saw happening during the Black Lives Matter movement. I think the murder of George Floyd unified Black people globally in a way that had never happened before. And so, um, yeah, it's something living over here, not only as a Black person, but also as a Black American. It's something else.
I can only imagine. I haven't made the trip yet, but I plan on, hopefully sometime soon. And we have our misconceptions, I think, of what it's like over there. And it's so good to get your perspective of being someone from here. And it'll be very interesting to kind of just jot down what it is. Now, one thing I have to say, it's a big difference in being somewhere on vacation versus
Yeah.
living there. And
Yeah.
everybody thinks every place is awesome when they're there, on a vacation, right? Because you're
Well,
not
it's because
working.
they're like, "Oh, hey," and they're really nice to you. And this came up, I think, in one of our conversations prior to the show, but
Hmm.
it's really funny because, there I think we were talking about, yeah, they treat you very well when you're a tourist here. One, because they're making money off of you and you aren't absorbing any of their resources, but also
Hmm.
it's the only time they're going to see you. It's like
Right. Yeah, it's leaving.
to be nice to you
Right.
because they'll never see you again. And so they'll take your money and give you this false security, and then they'll go on to the next person. But yeah, there's a big difference between visiting a place and living there.
Yeah, I know so many people who are like, I went to Germany. It was one, they treated me way great. Or I went to, wherever. And I'm like, yeah, it's because you don't live there. Let's see, live there for
Right,
about a year or so and see if you
right.
get the same treatment. Um, but
Well,
one
and
thing,
the thing is, when I think I think that the grass is always greener. I think when you look at other places, it's easy for you to think, wow, it's much better than there, especially if you are in a dire situation or an unhappy situation or a toxic environment, whatever you want to call it, um, where you live. Something else is always going to be more appealing. And my situation in moving here was quite desperate. I really needed to find a way to change my stars. And there's this movie called I think A Knight's Tale with Heath Ledger and all that. And one of the his whole mission was to change his stars. And the message in that movie was that everyone has the ability to seize a moment that can change their stars. And so that's what I looked at England as being for me is an opportunity for me to rewrite my script and change my main character.
mm,
So I really took a chance coming over here with very little resources, really no kind of plan, and here I am 5 years later, and I am in the UK right now. I'm in England right now, and we're on a what, 8-hour time difference? It's like
8 hours, yeah.
10:30 at night over here. What time is it there?
It's 2:22 in the afternoon. So
See, you get ready to have
yeah.
lunch, and I'm going to bed, so
I know, right? Actually, I had a long day, so I'm probably going to sleep too. But uh,
okay.
but oh, and I just want to say, I see there's people in the audience. Please let us know that you're here. Say something in there, and we'll acknowledge you. So
Oh, yeah, and if they
we
have
want
any questions, they, feel free to
yeah.
jump in and ask.
People be all scared
Oh, don't be scared, don't be scared. Me and
uh,
Kente go way back.
right, right. Yeah. So first thing, let's talk about I was here is the weather is very dreary and
Oh, it's
rainy and stuff.
awful. It is
That's true.
everything you've heard is true.
Okay.
So, like, they have no seasons to
Mhm,
speak of. It's just always overcast and rainy,
mhm.
with bursts of sunshine every now and then, but nothing that you can really count on. And then their summer here is generally about 4 weeks.
Mhm.
And this past summer, summer of
Wow.
22 was a record-breaking summer for them. We hit temperatures of 100 degrees Fahrenheit. They
Wow.
said it was the hottest summer ever on record
Wow.
for the entire UK. So yeah, it was pretty hot. And you're like, okay, but we endure 100% temperatures, 100-degree temperatures all of the time, every summer in America. But the
Mhm.
difference is we have the infrastructure for it. So like over here, they don't have air conditioner. They don't even have ceiling fans.
Right.
So the heat, that kind of heat over here is is really tremendous. So like we would go to the grocery store
Mhm.
just so we could cool off. But
You
you
did
know,
a
the
wait, you did
British
a,
people,
Bundy Family?
no, 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 no,
That
no,
was
no, no. Because
that
you
was the
know,
episode of Married with Children where
I was walking around being all happy and everything, and the British people were literally having a meltdown. They can't handle the heat at
mm,
all. And you know, Angie and I were like, "What?" We were very comfortable, so we
ah,
enjoyed the hot temperatures. We were like, "Bring it on," which
they
is
probably
funny
blamed
about the
you for
British
it.
people because they go on vacation. They spend thousands of pounds to go on holiday for those temperatures, but they couldn't handle it in
Mm,
their own country. It was kind of funny
that
watching
is
them
funny.
melt.
That is funny. Um, okay, so let's get to some of the quirky stuff about living in the UK, and before we get into the more deeper stuff, I think that's a good way to start,
Okay.
and allow more people to come into the conversation. But so okay, one thing is driving on the other side of the road. What's that like?
Okay, well, I can
That'd
back
be
you
so
up to
weird.
even something more basic, right? I
Uh-huh.
had to learn how to count the money,
Oh wow.
right? So I
Uh-huh.
had to learn the
Pounds
different,
and all that.
yeah, the pounds and the pence and all that. So
Hmm.
it was okay for the most part, but there's two coins even today that kind of confuse me. So what they consider to be the 10 pence, which
Hmm.
is 10 cents, is the shape of a nickel. It looks like a nickel.
Oh
And
wow.
then their 5 pence is the shape of a dime. So it's literally opposite of ours.
Wow. Okay.
So I always get hung up on those. But yeah, I had to learn how to count the money,
Mm.
make change. So
Wow.
that is the very basics. And I think because we both speak English, and even though America doesn't like to remember it, we are a British colony. So
Yeah.
there are so many similarities, but the culture shock is absolutely unreal, which we'll come to that a little bit later. But yeah, so that was the first thing that hit me like immediately when I got off the plane is having to learn the money
Mm-hmm.
and also to do quick calculations of exchange rates in my head.
Right.
Now it's not so much because the dollar is doing so well now against the pound, or I should say the
Right.
pound isn't doing so well against the dollar.
Right.
But when I first got here, just trying to keep the conversion rates and all that straight was difficult. And yes, then learning to, but driving came a little bit later. But yes, not only everybody drives here on a manual car pretty much. Automatics, some people have, but the majority of the vehicles are manual. And the good thing is, so many years ago when I first learned how to drive, I learned how to drive on a manual. So at least I didn't have that handicap.
Mm-hmm.
So um but obviously if the wheel is on the other side, I was used to shifting with my right hand, but now with the steering wheel on the other side, I have to learn how to shift with my left hand. So that was a challenge. But
Hmm.
not only being on the opposite side of the car, but being on the opposite side of the road.
Right. Yeah, that's so weird. When I see
Yeah.
it on TV, it's just like, wow.
Oh yeah, that takes some getting used to. But I am very proud to say that I think in 5 years, only maybe 3 times in that total 5 years did I ever turn on the wrong side of the street. Like
Oh, wow.
totally get disoriented and fortunately, thank God, each one of those times, nothing was coming.
Right.
So,
Right.
yeah, but it's
That's
very
probably bad.
confusing.
Yeah, I can imagine. Um, Now, do people say stuff like "Hello, governor"? You know, chip
So,
chip.
like, I posted on my Facebook, uh, feed one time. I was like, "I've been here," I think it was 3 years at a time. I was like, "I've been here 3 years, and not once have I heard anybody say cheerio or governor."
They
It's like, no, they don't. They don't
probably
talk
would look
like
at
that.
you weird if you said that.
You're
Yeah.
right. They were like,
Like,
What
huh?
you saying? What are you saying?"
Right. This is not Downton Abbey, okay?
The one thing that
uh,
is annoying to me is though, when they hear my American accent, not so much in London, but where I live, every person that hears my accent, I get the same questions. Oh, where you from? How long
mhm,
you been here? What
mhm,
brings you over? You
mhm,
know, how you liking it? How
mhm,
how do you find it is what they would say. How do you find it?
mhm,
And it's okay if it's like one person, but it's like every single solitary person, from the delivery guy to the Uber driver to the shopkeeper to the people in the store that overhear your accent. It is nonstop. And
Mhm.
those are the questions that I get all of the time. And when Trump was president, it was always this, "What do you think about Trump?" And I'm like, "Well, what do you think about Boris
Boris
Johnson? Because
Johnson,
they're
right?
about the same, aren't they?"
Yeah, his cousin,
Yeah,
right?
right. They even look alike. So,
Right.
yeah, but we get those questions all of the time.
Yeah. Yeah.
And apparently I haven't lost my accent at all. Like
No,
you don't hear a British accent in me at all, do you?
no, I was worried. I was like, when I first started talking to you, and I knew you had been there, I was like, please don't tell me she's gonna sound like a British citizen now. It's
I
like
think
it's
if I
funny.
were to let myself relax
Uh
and
huh.
maybe had a few drinks in me or something, it
Yeah.
probably would come out, but for the most part,
Yeah.
I
I
haven't.
yeah. That's I don't know. I feel like if I was there for a long extended period of time, I doubt it if I would lose. I you know I think I would hold on to that. Like that the not having the accent. But I'm sure there's certain things that you hear so much that you start to incorporate it into your everyday speech. I'm sure
Oh
there must
yeah,
be.
well I've had to, like the colloquialisms and
Mhm.
the slang. And what's really interesting is when I first came here, everybody sounded the same.
Mhm.
But some of the accents were a lot stronger than others, but they still sounded British to me. But
Right.
now, after living here for a while, I can hear the different accents, like where people are from. I may not be able to pinpoint where they're from,
Mhm.
but I can definitely hear the different accents. And the London accent is very distinct, but then parts of London have different accents as well. And
Mhm.
it's the same as America, we all
Right.
have our different accents and all of that. But when you move to a foreign country, everybody sounds the same, but then after you've been here for a while, you definitely can pick up on the different nuances.
I watched a show called The Graham Norton Show. Are you familiar with Graham Norton?
Yeah.
And I love listening to or watching the show because he gets into some of the British, things. Like they always make fun of people from Newcastle, like that's like a thing that they do a lot on the
Yeah.
show, and they be like, "Oh, you're from Newcastle," like,
Yeah. Yeah, the
which is
North gets a bad rap.
yeah, which is funny. Probably that's where I get a lot of stuff is sadly from Graham Norton. So, yeah. Um, okay, so another thing is, I know I got to ask you about this. Recently, the Queen passed away, and out here in America, I mean, that's all they talked about for like weeks. But I can only imagine there. I mean, and she was there. What was she, 90 something?
96, and she
Yeah.
reigned for 70 years.
I mean, that's really impressive. But so I can only imagine that must have been the only thing people were talking there, right?
Yeah, it was the only thing that they were talking about, the only thing on television, the only thing on the radio. Some of the radio stations went silent for 24 hours. Like they shut the station down for 24 hours.
Mm.
As a matter of fact, the day she died, I had tickets to this Latin rhythms band, and
Hmm.
I was in the Uber on my way to the venue and was about 5 minutes away from the event when I got the message that the event had been canceled because of the queen's death,
Oh
and I was
wow.
like, "Oh, wow, okay."
Like, man, that seems
Yeah,
more
no, I was like,
reason to have it. Yeah,
well,
but
yeah, and the thing is, was the irony in that is that I had actually for the first time I had like tickets back to back to go to
mhm.
two different concerts, and the one on the following night still went through, and that's what they said. She's dead, but we're gonna. It's more reason for us to have this thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was in London was just, oh my gosh, there was so much traffic. My nephew flew in from America. It just so happened he had planned his vacation um at the time of her death, and he was saying that the traffic in London was so bad. It was a 20-minute drive was taking like 2 hours, 2.5 hours to get from point A to point B. And I'm glad I wasn't there on that weekend because I live about 150 miles north of northwest of London.
Hmm.
So I'm glad I wasn't there. I do go to London quite frequently, but I wasn't there then, thank goodness.
Yeah, I can only imagine with that. Um, okay, so one more thing I just kind of wanted to get to that's more of in the vein of whimsical about Mary O. England is
Yeah.
one thing that is great about England is it's an old place and it has a lot of great architecture and a lot of history and whatnot. And so my question is, I imagine you probably early on maybe did some of the touristy stuff.
Oh
Uh,
my gosh.
mhm.
Yeah, so I'm here with my daughter, and we did a lot of exploring, and we went to the normal places. We went to Buckingham Palace, we went to, Stonehenge. We did a lot of touristy things, the British Museum, the British Library. We went to Bath, we went to uh a lot of castles. We went to Wales, we went to Carnarvon, which is a tremendous castle in Wales. You want to talk about creepy? That place was, oh my gosh. We actually had an experience there that was terrifying, but
Hmm.
um yeah, we did a lot, and then COVID hit. So, I mean, you think I've been here 5 years, but 2 of those years were in lockdown.
Right.
So, that really put a damper. As a matter of fact, we were spending Christmas and New Year in London, and the fireworks at the Needle, at the Eye. Sorry, I
Hmm.
said the Needle, the Eye, which is that big Ferris wheel,
Right.
and it was right during that time they started talking about COVID. They started talking about coronavirus, and we made it back home, and it was shortly thereafter we went in lockdown. So that put a damper on it, and we went to Paris when we got here. Because it's connected just by a train, or you can take the ferry, but we took the train over to Paris. So yeah, we did a lot in the beginning, but hopefully we started picking it back up now. But
Mhm.
we went to the Netherlands before COVID because here where we are, Europe is so accessible. So, for example, we flew to Amsterdam for
Nice.
£20 round trip each. So it was
Oh,
like a
okay.
total of £40, which that's like $50
Oh yeah, that's
for
really good.
both of us.
Oh wow.
And that was
And
airfare.
and I'm sure the hash is cheaper than that, right?
The what?
The
The
hash
what?
is cheaper than that.
Well, I don't know. So I've heard
Right, right,
from a friend.
right. And, this I don't really do big crowds anymore, but I always wanted to go to Glastonbury
Oh,
and Hyde Park as well as Nebelworth because they always have like amazing concerts there, and I've always seen them like online and stuff. And I always said one day I'm gonna have to make one of those concerts, and I'll go past my not liking big crowds right now, just to
it goes
experience
beyond
that.
the big crowd though, Kente. It's like it because it's in Scotland,
Hmm.
and it's very rainy there, so you're dealing with rain and mud. And
Right.
that's the thing that gets me is like the crowd is one thing because you can move and navigate,
Hmm.
quieter spaces, but you can't escape that mud.
Right. I mean, you know what? That's one of those things where I'm just like, I have to just be game, and just do it. But I've always wanted to go to Glastonbury. I know it's
Do
like
it.
a ways
You
away.
should do it.
So yeah, I would definitely want to go to Glastonbury. Uh, and like I said, Nebelworth. They just had a big concert in Nebelworth, which is only, that's like they don't do it like every year. So I mean, COVID aside, it's like every like I think 4 or 5 years or something. They have
Mm.
a big concert there, and they had Liam Gallagher this year, um,
Mhm.
of Oasis fame. I love Oasis. They're a great group. So I would have
Well, I
definitely.
haven't been to Scotland yet, but I'm planning to go for my birthday in
Oh,
December.
cool.
We're gonna
Okay.
go
Oh
to
yeah, we're both
Edinburgh.
December babies.
Yeah, we are. Yeah, Edinburgh. We're gonna
Oh,
go
nice, nice,
spend my birthday there.
nice.
Just gonna take the train because Scotland is only about an 8-hour drive from
Mhm.
here, so it's not that far.
Oh yeah, you can go to Loch Ness. See if you can see the Loch Ness monster.
Well, they kind of debunked that a few years ago, and I was
You
like,
know,
really?
I'm so
I was like, really?
if you take me on a trip, like I always got to see those kind of things, right? Like I got to see like it's so funny because I've gone on trip with family and friends, and they're just like uh they have so many things uh that you go see in different places, and my friends be like, I don't care, I just want to go to, they want to do the same thing we do in LA, and it's like no, I want to be where the people at, you know what I mean?
Right.
But so like there was this thing that I was so glad I did in when I went to Atlanta. We went to this place called the Georgia Guidestones, which is in Elberton, Georgia, which is a couple of hours from Atlanta, and somebody blew it up like this year, right? So I was glad I was able to see it when I saw it,
Oh,
because
wow.
some idiot blew it up because it was the devil or whatever. So, but so sometimes you
That's why
gotta
you have to live in the moment sometimes
live in the
and
moment.
don't put off till tomorrow what you can do today. And I've learned that recently.
And we're trying to set up I don't know why I'm whispering. We're trying to set up a trip to Greece and Italy. So you know, um, maybe we can make the UK while we're doing a trip. I'm trying to put a family trip together for
Oh,
next
that
year.
would be good.
So and I want to go to Tunisia and Morocco as well. So
There you go.
because that's also like getting to Africa is really really cool going from London to Africa. So
My trip next year is going to be to Sharm el Sheikh.
okay, Sharm el
Sharm el
Sheikh. Yeah.
Sheikh. It's
Hmm.
in Egypt,
Hmm.
and
I'm an
that's
Egyptian.
that's on my radar. I was
Egypt
gonna
is
go
my
this
dream.
year, but I waited too long,
Right.
and
You got to go at the
I
right
just couldn't
time.
make it work.
My dream is to go to Egypt. Like,
Yeah,
this is how, if I went to Egypt, when I go to Egypt, when I go, I'll probably cry.
yeah.
I think I would cry. And, anybody knows me, I'm a gangster. But, I'm be like, cut the camera off, cut the camera off, because I've always wanted to go. I've had a couple opportunities, and just by bad luck, it just didn't happen. But I'm gonna force to get that going. So I definitely, the only reason why we're not doing in this trip is because the timing. You got to go at a certain time or you'll die.
Right, exactly,
So
exactly.
but anyway, so all right, so we got all the fun business out. Let's get into the real deep stuff. Uh Oh wow, I'm sorry. I just got a message. Someone said, "I love seeing you. You lost a lot of weight." Thank you. Yes, I have. Yes, I have. Um, so let's talk about England from more of uh, a deeper racial point of view. Now, I always say this when people make the argument that it's some sort of Shangri-La for black folks, because they'd be like, back in the 20s, the jazz musicians went there and they got treated better. I said, yeah, because they could play the horn. It's like that was the reason why, you know, and or you could tap dance. They treated you slightly better, right? But they don't have an Obama. They don't have a Obama, or they don't have a and a lot of look at a lot of their television. They have like this one black woman. I need to find out what her name is. She's like the black woman that's on all the BBC stuff. She's a real skinny, dark skinned sister, and I swear she's like, I call her the black British person, you know, like she's in everything. And so black people, that's why they come to America, because then they have better opportunities to be in stuff. And so there's a lot of racial aspects that I don't know that people quite understand. And so let's talk about, from your point of view, now being there for 5 years, what are some of the things that you've noticed?
Man, there is so much to unpack. It's like I don't even know where to begin. So, because of my work and my research, I had to do quite a bit of historical research to understand the Black presence in the UK. And um, oh God, I really don't even know where to start. So, I guess I'll address part of what you said in that you are correct. There's no real anti-racism infrastructure in this country. So, for
Hmm.
example, there's no NAACP, there's no, Rainbow Coalition. There's nothing like that is a resource or um, an activist presence that regularly and vehemently fights racism, except
Hmm.
for Stand Up to Racism, which is an organization here that's very powerful. But okay, so let's take a look first at the fact that so Black people make up 13% of the US population, but there are also other significant percentages of other brown people that make up the US population as well. So you are more likely to see people of color um pretty much anywhere you go, unless you get into
Right.
funky states like Idaho and Wyoming and that kind of stuff,
Right.
Montana, up there with the militia.
Right.
But here, out of 61 million people, Kente, only 3% are Black.
Hmm.
3%.
Wow.
And 5% are Asian, which is East Asian and Southeast Asian. So
Hmm.
um, there's not a lot of Black people in this country, so
Right.
that are recorded. And of that 3%, a million of them live in London, in the greater London area.
Hmm.
And then 700 to 900,000, somewhere in between there, live in Birmingham, which is the second largest city, which is where I live. And
Hmm.
then the other million are scattered throughout the UK. And we're not even talking about just England. We are talking about the entire UK, which is England, Northern Ireland, and Scotland.
Hmm.
So that gives you some idea of, like, there ain't no Black people over here. Now, of the Black people that are here, like, even though Black Americans, and Lord knows I can't self-identify for people, I can't, talk about people's heritage, but generally speaking, we're just Black Americans, and we just kind of lump all of us in there together. We're Black and we're Americans. And then of that, we trickle down to our different ethnic identities and heritages.
Right.
Here, there is no homogenous group of Black British.
Hmm.
So you have Black Caribbean British and you have
Hmm.
Black African British,
Hmm.
but the there's no umbrella for people who fall anywhere outside of those two ethnic heritages.
Right.
And I hope I'm
Canada is very
explaining.
similar. Canada
Huh?
is very similar.
Yeah. So here I am, a Black American who has very different experiences than Black Caribbean people or Black African people. And then you add the British context on top of that. I feel like a fish out of water over here. And I find that I have very little support because each one of those groups, the Caribbeans and the Africans, want to tell Black Americans everything that we do wrong. Oh, well,
Right.
you should have done this, and y'all, and blah 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 blah, and your attitude about this, and blah 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 blah, blah. And it's nauseating.
Oh
I mean,
yeah, I
for a
can
lack of a
imagine.
better word, it's and you don't fit in. You just don't fit in
Right.
because I don't have the African experience. I'm far removed from the African experience, and I certainly don't have the Caribbean experience.
Right.
And so while these people have different experiences among themselves, like the Jamaicans and the Trinidadians and the Barbadians and they all have their different experiences. They still share the Caribbean. They are still from the Caribbean.
They got
Um,
that flag.
huh?
They got their own flags and stuff. Yeah.
Exactly. And then the Africans who, for a lot of times, have only experienced racism when they've come to a white majority society like Britain. They never experienced racism before they got here. So the way they perceive and process and handle racism completely different from how I would do it.
Right.
So that's the dynamic of the population. But then again, you have the British. And the British have been very successful in painting themselves as, "Well, racism doesn't exist here."
Yeah.
Because we didn't have chattel slavery on our shores. So
Right.
racism doesn't exist. That's what they hide. That's the cloak they hide behind. Well,
Right.
we didn't have chattel slavery here. But you know what? You orchestrated the
Right.
largest human trafficking in human history, the
Yes.
transatlantic slave trade. But
Right.
they don't own that part because then they want to hide behind Wilberforce,
Right.
you know. So the racism here in America, you can walk into a store and know who you're dealing with just by how they look, by the way they carry themselves, the way they act. You can tell when you are dealing with a racist in America. Call a spade, pun intended. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
But here, it's so insidious. It's so passive aggressive. It's so they're in such denial and cognitive dissonance that it's very, very difficult to navigate because it's just not blatant. It's just very nuanced here. So
Eh,
then you've got a situation where your identity prevents you from feeling like you fit in, and then you've got the nuances of the racism in this country that a Black American can feel very lost here.
Right.
And it's a
Right.
lot. It's a lot to unpack, really.
Right. It's real deep. Like
Yeah.
um, I really, a big part of me really would love to spend some time, there because a lot of us. If I grew up in an activist household, so
Right.
I was always, my dad when I was in the crib, my dad would say Black Power. I was a little baby doing it, didn't even know what I was doing at the time. So that's how I grew up. Whereas a lot of us don't have that. So we can miss a lot of stuff. And
Yeah.
I've had conversations with folk who totally will miss the technology. So, and you're trying to explain to them and they don't get it. Sometimes you got to have the Negro wake up call to really understand what's going on and what the real deal is. And it's interesting, even here, like sometimes I'll listen to people who, I don't like the necessarily what they call woke, right? Um, and the whole cancel culture type thing. But I always caution black folks who ride hard against the whole cancel culture and woke thing is you gotta be careful because when they say get rid of cancel culture, they're not necessarily talking about protecting you.
Right. Of
They're talking about
course.
for themselves
Of
to not be
course.
canceled, to do whatever they want. So when you ride so hard to protect that, you're really protecting their right to do what they want to do to you. Because believe me, they're not riding for you. Like look at you. There's a lot of black folks who put their foot in it you know, and there ain't no white folks backing them up. You know what I'm
No.
saying? Very, very rarely do you see that.
And we
But
fall for that okey doke
mhm,
because of post-traumatic slave syndrome,
right,
which is what Dr. Leary coined in
love her.
2005.
If you're
Right,
out
and
there,
it's
Dr. Leary, please, we would love to interview you.
oh gosh, yes. Yes, I've read your book. You're cited in my thesis. I used
Amazing.
post-traumatic
Can
slave
I-
syndrome as part of my theoretical framework in my thesis. But yeah, it's that mentality that we are indirectly or directly protecting the massa, even at our own harm, at our own detriment, because it's learned behavior.
Can, can,
So
can I say something about the post traumatic slave syndrome?
yeah, sure, of
Is
course.
I imagine you've probably seen her lecture video.
hmm I've
Anytime
read
you've
her
seen
book.
the lecture video,
hmm
do you know how it got to the internet?
How is that?
This guy. I was the one. Every time I've seen the video anywhere, it's my original video. And
This is
yes,
the
yes,
book, people.
I have
Oh,
it too. Yeah,
this is the book.
and
So get the
and
book.
and I feel bad because I heard her in an interview say that someone put out my video online, right? And she was like upset, and I have to say, and I feel bad for. I mean, I don't feel bad in the fact that so many people saw it because of it. I put it. Okay, this is what happened was a person had the videotape and wanted it on DVD. So I had this is years ago. There was no Facebook, right? So what happened was I did the conversion and I had to put it in different parts. Um, and what happened was so many people I wanted them to see it. So I uploaded it on MySpace. And at the time, I really didn't understand what that meant by uploading a video on there. Honestly, I only thought the person that would see it would like be my family, or who I didn't realize that millions of people would see it, like all the videos that are on YouTube. That's from my original video that I put, and I didn't do it on purpose. I really did had no understanding of what was gonna happen. So if I ever saw her, I would apologize for that. Uh, but I mean, in a way, I'm happy because so many people saw it, and and I know for a fact every video I've seen, and I know it's my video because it's watermarked. In a way, not it doesn't say my name, but the way that I put the text and stuff, it was definitely mine. I use Comic Sans, so this was a long time ago. No one
hmm
uses Comic Sans, but anyway, it's so important, and I think it's a must. Definitely, if you're black,
I'm gonna put
that's
it back up here so you can
yes,
take a picture, a picture of the sorry, take a
yes,
picture of the screen and get this woman's book. It
yes,
will bring you such a brighter understanding of some of the things that we experience and how we process things as Black people.
yes,
Part of my research is also racial trauma, and so she talks about that in her book, and it's just a definite addition to your collection. Dr. Joy DeGroy
DeGru,
Leary.
Larry,
DeGruy.
yeah,
Yeah,
because I
Leary.
believe I think she might have gotten married since then, and now
She goes by
uh,
Dr. Leary.
yeah, or something to that
hmm
effect. That's why the
Or
name
the
is
other
different.
way around someday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So she's out of Portland, but she's from out here, from LA. She's a
hmm
homegirl. Actually, I know a guy who went to junior high with her. So, but he hasn't talked to her in years. So, but because when I was telling him about it, I said, oh, "This is a great thing, post traumatic." He had never heard of it, and he's watching his like, and he called her by her name, childhood name.
hmm
Like I know her. That's Junebug, whatever. I don't. It wasn't
hmm
Junebug,
hmm
but whatever. And I was like, I know, I grew up with her. I was
Yeah.
like, oh wow. So anyway, but we got a little sidetracked, but my fault. But
In a good way though.
yeah, yeah, definitely in a good way. We should, maybe every episode we should present a book that the reader should
Oh, I have another one that I think, I'm gonna do two this week then. So
okay.
the other book, I just oh, this one. I have lots of them. So yeah, we can do this, and I'm sure you have lots of them too.
Yes.
This book here,
Oh
Slave
my God, yes.
Religion. The Invisible Institution in the Antebellum South by Dr. Albert Rabateau.
Yep.
I interviewed him, as a matter of fact, when I read this book. This book I read in undergrad school, God knows when. When I took African American religious studies, that's actually my minor degree is African American studies, but
Mm-hmm.
this was an African American religious experience class,
Yes.
and this book um, was part of our reading. And what it does is it takes you from the antebellum South all the way to the modern day Black church, and how we had the Black church has some of its yeah, anyway, I won't even say anymore. You just have to read it for yourself. But
I've
yeah,
read
this
it.
is the other book. Take a
Terrific.
picture. Take a picture of it.
Terrific book. Definitely terrific book.
Okay.
Yes.
So next week I'll have some others
Sure.
because that
Sure.
was really impromptu. I didn't know we were going to do that.
Yeah, just we're figuring it out, right?
Yep.
What they say, we're building the plane while we're flying it, as they say.
Oh no,
So,
God, please don't tell me that because I want that pilot to have that plane fully intact when I get on there.
so I heard a comedian say that he was on a prop plane and they were having some problems,
Oh
and
no.
they said we're gonna try to make it. That's what
Oh no.
the pilot said. We're gonna try to make it.
You do
He's like,
not want to hear your
try? What do you
pilot
mean
say
try?
that. My
He's like, what do
nephew's
you mean
husband is a
try?
pilot, and I was like, "Can I just make sure I'm on every single one of your flights?" Because
Right. Right. It's like, do you remember that movie with Denzel where he's on coke, but no,
I
he's drunk.
refuse to watch that movie.
Yeah, yeah, he's drunk, but he does coke to get straight to fly.
I remember being on a because I was in the travel industry, so I used to
uh,
fly all the time, and I remember I was on an American Airlines flight from Nashville, and it just so happened that the man I was sitting next to was
mhm.
an off-duty American Airlines pilot.
Oh wow.
And so I said to him, I was like, "Oh, I'm so relieved to be sitting next to you because then I won't panic until you panic, right?" But then I thought about that for a second. I said, "Wait a minute. If you panic, we we are really messed up.
Yeah, we're
If you
screwed.
panic."
If he's like,
So,
"Oh my god, we're gonna die,"
no,
you're like, "Oh shit," you know.
no.
Yeah,
So
I'm a.
yeah.
I don't like to fly, but I do it because I have to. And honestly, when there's bad turbulence, you would probably lose respect for me. The way I trip, you would be like, you would be like that. I'm pretty bad when it's turbulence. When it's bad,
But you know
I'm
what,
just like,
Kente? I used to
mhm.
travel. I had to travel for my job, and I
Mhm.
traveled 70%. I
Oh
mean, I
wow.
was on the road all the time. 3 weeks out of the month, I was traveling for my job, and I was fine with it. I was never afraid, never worried. And then I had my first daughter,
Hmm.
and it was something about having a child,
Mm.
and then I became terrified to fly, and I mean, it got really bad. I mean, I to the man who might be watching now that I dug my nails into you unmercifully because I was
Oh wow.
terrified. Yeah, I'm so sorry. I mean, I've dug my nails into complete strangers. And you know what? People are usually, or they used to be, very, very kind about things like that. They just kind of understood that there were some people that were nervous, or at least maybe I was just lucky that way. But yeah, man. I mean, I've started crying. I've had a United Airline stewardess tell me she was gonna put me off if I didn't come.
I one time, this was years ago, and I was on a flight, and I was a little nervous about the flight. It was going to San Antonio, and Coolio, the rapper, the now late rapper Coolio, had
Yeah,
came
he
on the
just
flight,
died.
and a person sitting next to me realized I was nervous about the flight, and they said, "Oh, this plane ain't going down. Coolio's on here." Like it had something to do with it. Like it's like there's no way the plane's going down. Coolio's here.
Right,
Like
right, right.
I'm like, I don't know. That might have increased the chances.
Yeah,
you know.
exactly.
So
Exactly.
no, but of course, obviously everything worked out just fine. But okay, so um, it- just kind of to wrap things up.
Hmm.
Um, Now you have a daughter who when she came to the UK, how old was she?
13.
13. So now she's 8. Oh my God. I can't believe your
And
daughter's
she'll
18.
be 19 in January.
Wow.
Yep.
And she looked like her mama. You know, like that. Oh my God,
Poor
man. It's like
child.
you it's almost like you went in the lab and just said, I'm gonna make me again. You know, like wow. So 13 to 19, 18, 19 is, some
Formative
precious
years.
years, right? So how do you think being here is um I mean, you were a girl, you were a young girl at one point from 13 to 18. So what do you
Oh
think?
God.
How
Yeah.
you think it's benefited? Has it been positive?
Well, that's something I really like to delve into, maybe in a future
Oh,
show,
okay.
and that we can revisit that. But the short end of it is she is a European girl.
Mm.
Like, um, as you know, my husband recently passed away,
Right.
and she didn't want to go back to America. Even prior to that, she didn't want to go back to America because when she left at 13, she was
Mhm.
still in elementary school, just
Right.
going into middle school.
Right.
So she didn't have any friends left there anymore that she was still in touch with, except for
Right.
one who, bless her heart, she showed up at her dad's memorial, my daughter's her dad's memorial.
Right.
But that was like the only person that she had maintained a connection with. And so she spent almost as many formative years here as she
Hmm.
did there. And so she didn't remember a lot of things, like, she just didn't remember a lot
Hmm.
about America, but she went to high school here.
Hmm.
So she's more of a European girl. She just started university,
Oh
Kente,
wow!
if you can
Congrats.
believe that. She
I
just
know it's
started
hard to believe. She
university
was a little
3
girl when we
weeks
first met.
ago. Yeah, she was little, right? She
Yeah.
was a little girl. But my point is that she's studying, and she decided to take a major that allowed her to study a year abroad for a year, because she
Mhm.
wants to go experience Italy. She wants to go to she we didn't like France so much, to be honest. Paris, I will never go there again, but
Oh
I
wow.
didn't like it. But she loved the Netherlands. She just absolutely fell in love with it. So she's very curious about traveling around through Europe, and she doesn't really have any desire to go back to the US. And she said to me, "Mom, you can go if you want, but I'm not going." She's
Oh
told
wow.
me that. Like, I'm not going
Wow.
back.
Well, hey, it is what it is. Ti
It
is.
is. It is. It is. But, she is a black woman, and she embraces her blackness, and she understands racism, and she's a
That's
little
wonderful.
warrior, let me tell you. She can debate, she can present arguments that I just look at her and I'm thinking, "My gosh, she's amazing." And so she puts these white people in their place. In class, she makes arguments about racism. She's really, really a powerhouse for her age.
Does
So,
she have an accent?
not at all.
Oh, okay. All right. All right. Is does
Not
she,
at all.
does she have
Not at
a
all.
DC accent? You
I don't know, because I don't have a DC accent. I
really
think
don't. No, you
every
don't.
now and then the southern twang comes out every now and then, but I think my accent is pretty generic. It's just an American accent. Every now and then I have a southern twang, or I'll hit a certain word that comes up. But my mother's from Kentucky, so
Oh,
you know, I
like
couldn't help it,
like
right?
people from Southeast DC, I know it right away. That accent is so
Yeah.
powerful, so you
Is
know
it
it
the
right
accent
away.
or the dialect?
The dialect,
Yeah.
yeah, and then some of the
That go-go
phrasing,
dialect from
yeah,
Southeast. And it's funny,
yeah.
that's where I
And they
grew
don't even
up,
say
is Southeast.
Southeast; they say Southeast,
Southeast.
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 Yeah, it's like yeah.
Southeast. That's where I grew up, actually, till I was about 10, before we
Oh yeah.
moved.
Oh,
Yep.
okay. So yeah. So and big shout out to Tori. She says hi in the chat.
Hey,
Uh,
Tori.
yeah. So, but I think our first episode, this is really good. It's a great start, and I'm looking forward to more of these dialogues. And we're gonna have some guests on at some point. I think we should do a similar show with and we can have people on to talk about Canada, because Canada has a very similar. I mean, they're obviously connected to England, but it's very similar. The black people have a similar relationship when it comes to Canada. So, and I know a lot of Black Canadians who would add to the conversation. So,
Well, I
it would
think
be good
Canada is another situation where people, and we have to be honest, where white people are making it sound like the holy grail, and
right.
it's the perfect solution to all of America's problems. But you talk to black people, and they got the same kind of
They getting
negative
it too.
experiences. So basically, it's safe to assume, based even on my own research, that regardless of where black people go. Now, my study was only a study of women, black women,
Hmm.
but it's probably not a stretch to include men in this statement when I say, irrespective of location, black people are going to experience racism similarly. And that's
Oh
exactly
yeah,
what my study, you know,
definitely. Brothers get it everywhere.
yeah, exactly.
And we
And
get it
that's
in a violent way. Especially if you are a masculine male, you really
yes.
get it. So yeah, for sure.
I couldn't include men in the study only because it would have made the study too big for
Right,
me to
right,
manage.
right,
Because male experiences are they're similar, but there are differences in the male experience. And
right.
just for me to have been able to manage that as one person for two countries, it was already madness enough across five different time zones.
Right.
Or actually, it was yeah, it was 5 time zones, just
Hey,
trying to manage it all, it was too much. Hello,
the
Facebook user.
I don't know why it doesn't have your name, but if you can put who you are, it's probably somebody I know. The Facebook
Hello,
user.
Facebook user.
If you could say who you are, Facebook user, you
Are
just
we
put your
on
first name.
Facebook right now?
Oh yeah, we're on Facebook.
Oh, hey, Facebook.
It says hello, Kente. Who are you, Facebook user? I bet it's somebody I know. But I don't know why. It for some of them it does that. They spell my name wrong, Kenite.
So
Oh
not
man,
that good of a friend, is
I
it?
know, right? I know. Even family members be messing up my name, so
That's
it's
funny.
it's ridiculous. So, but yeah, we will be back on next week with a more show. And
Sounds good.
oh wait, maybe not. They don't know it because they're asking where we both from. And we'll say it again. I'm from Los Angeles, and Carlette is from um, DC.
Birmingham, England, by way of Washington,
There you
D.C.
go. Thank you.
I live in England now.
Yeah. So yeah. So Birmingham. How you say Birmingham?
Oh, yeah, so that was the other thing, along with counting money and all that kind of stuff. You can't come over here saying Birmingham, okay?
It's not
It's
Alabama.
not Alabama, okay? It's
Yeah.
Birmingham.
Yeah. All right. They're from
And you just
NYC.
wonder they don't pronounce anything the way that it's spelled.
Right. Yeah.
Just so you know that.
All right. With that said, you can get me at Kente F on Twitter, Kente Ferguson on Instagram. And of course, the website is theindyradio.com. That's the INDY radio.com. And what about you?
You can find me on Instagram, Ms. Lett. That's MSLETTEUSUK.
All right. Oh, we got someone
He's
from
from
Pakistan.
Pakistan. Oh,
All right.
cool.
So it isn't someone I know. All right.
That's
That's pretty
good.
cool. All right. With that said, we'll catch you next week.
All right.
Peace.
Peace out.